It's 2:30 in the morning. Your house is completely silent, except for one thing. A slow, almost invisible movement at the edge of your bed. Your dog shifts slightly, not enough to wake you, not enough to make a sound, just enough that if you were awake, you might feel it. But you're not. And that moment, that quiet, almost nothing moment, it might be the only time they tried to tell you something was wrong. Most people believe they would know if their dog was in pain. They think, if it was serious, my dog would cry, or he'd stop moving, right? Or even, I just feel it. But here's the truth most dog owners never hear. Dogs don't show pain the way humans do. They hide it. They soften it. They bury it until silence becomes their loudest cry. And the biggest mistake? We mistake that silence for peace. Here's the secret that changes everything. Your dog is communicating with you every single day, but not in the ways you've been taught to notice. So if you care about them, even a little, stay with me. Because what you're about to hear might be the difference between catching something early or realizing too late that they were asking for help all along. And before we go further, if you've ever looked at your dog and thought, something feels off, just comment, felt it below. I want to know you're here. Now let's start with one of the most overlooked signs of all, the yawn that has nothing to do with sleep. You've seen it. Middle of the day, nothing happening, no exercise, no excitement, and yet your dog yawns, slow, heavy, almost forced. You probably smiled, maybe even joked, wow, tough life. But here's the part most people miss. That yawn isn't about being tired. It's about trying to stay calm when something inside doesn't feel right. Behavioral studies on dogs suggest that yawning is often a displacement signal, a way to regulate internal stress when they don't know what else to do. In other words, your dog is whispering, I'm uncomfortable, but I don't want to make it worse. And the scariest part? It happens quietly, repeatedly, invisibly. By the time you notice, it's already been happening for a while. But wait, here's where it gets even more confusing. Because the next sign, it looks exactly like love, following you everywhere, room to room, step for step, even to the bathroom. At first, it feels sweet, loyal, almost flattering. But what if it's not love? What if it's fear? Dogs are wired for attachment, but when that attachment turns into constant shadowing, especially suddenly, it can signal separation anxiety. Their world starts to shrink until you are the only thing that feels safe, and the moment you disappear, their calm disappears with you. Studies on canine behavior show that dogs with high attachment anxiety experience increased heart rate and cortisol levels when separated from their owner. But here's the emotional truth behind that science. They're not just following you, they're holding on. If your dog does this, don't panic. Just notice, because awareness is the first step to helping them feel safe again. And if this is hitting a little too close to home, just comment, I see it. Now here's something most people never think about. Your dog's ears. Not when they perk up, but when they don't. When they stay pinned back all the time. You might assume it's submission or personality. But veterinarians often point out, chronic ear pinning can be a sign of discomfort or pain. Not always visible, not always obvious. Sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's emotional. But either way, it's real, because dogs don't fake body language. If their ears are constantly pulled back, their body is saying, I'm not okay, but I don't know how to explain it. Now let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you watched your dog breathe? Not casually, not in passing, but really watched. Because subtle changes in breathing, faster rhythm, shallower movement, occasional trembling, can signal things like pain, anxiety, or even early-stage illness. Dogs rarely gasp like humans. They adapt, they compensate, until they can't anymore. And here's the terrifying part. By the time it becomes obvious, it's already serious. But the next sign? It's even quieter. It doesn't move. It doesn't make sound. It disappears. Eye contact. There was a time your dog watched you constantly. Every movement, every sound, every breath. And then one day, they don't. No tracking, no focus, just distance. Research on canine cognition suggests that eye contact is a major bonding behavior between dogs and humans, linked to oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds parents and children. So when that connection fades, it's not random. It means something has shifted, emotionally, physically, or both. And if you've ever looked at your dog and thought, something's missing, you're not imagining it. But here's where it really starts to hurt, because the next sign, is when joy disappears. The toy they used to love, untouched. The leash, ignored. Your voice, less exciting than it used to be. This isn't just aging, it can be withdrawal. And studies on animal behavior suggest dogs can experience depression-like states, especially when dealing with pain, loss, or stress. The emotional meaning? They're not losing interest in the toy. They're losing energy for the world. And if that doesn't make you pause for a second, this will. Because the next sign is when they don't just pull away from activities, they pull away from you. Hiding, behind furniture, under beds, in corners. Dogs are naturally social, so when they isolate themselves, it's instinct. In the wild, animals hide when they're vulnerable, because vulnerability equals danger. So if your dog is suddenly choosing isolation, they're not just being quiet, they're protecting themselves. And that's a moment you should never ignore. But here's the part that surprises almost everyone. Sometimes pain doesn't look like stillness. Sometimes it looks like repetition, licking the same spot over and over. At first it seems harmless, then the fur disappears, then the skin turns red. What's happening? It's not always an allergy, it can be a coping mechanism. Dogs, like humans, develop repetitive behaviors to deal with internal stress. Some studies on domestic dogs show that compulsive licking is linked to anxiety regulation, similar to how humans bite nails or pace. But here's the emotional translation. They're trying to soothe something they don't understand, and that's what makes it so heartbreaking. Now, let's talk about something you can't miss. Food. When a dog stops eating, that's not a preference. That's a signal. Yes, dogs can be picky, but consistent loss of appetite? That's different. It can indicate pain, illness, emotional shutdown. And here's the reality. Appetite is one of the first things to go when something is wrong. So if your dog skips meals repeatedly, don't wait, because time matters here, and so does action. Now pause for a second, because this next one, it creeps in slowly. Weight changes, too thin, or suddenly heavier. No diet change, no routine shift, just different. And that's your dog's body telling a story you can't hear. Internal issues, hormonal imbalances, chronic stress. They all leave marks, not in words, but in weight. And then comes something even harder to ignore. Water. Drinking more than usual, especially at night. It seems small, but excessive thirst can point to serious conditions. Kidney issues, diabetes, infections, the body trying to balance something that's off. And your dog? They don't explain, they just drink. Now here's where it becomes physical in a way you can finally see. Posture. A slight arch in the back, shorter steps, hesitation before movement. This isn't laziness, it's protection. Dogs instinctively adjust their bodies to guard areas that hurt, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. But now we reach one of the most emotional signs of all, the sounds they make when you're not there. Soft whining, low cries, subtle pacing. You might never hear it, but it happens. Because separation anxiety isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet suffering, and that kind of pain? It builds over time, until finally we reach the last sign, the one no one wants to face. You call their name, and nothing happens. No reaction, no movement, no connection. And in that moment, you realize something has changed, deeply. Because when a dog stops responding, it's not defiance. It's shutdown, emotional, physical, or both. And yes, that moment hurts. But here's the truth you need to hear if you've made it this far. It's not too late. Because now, you see, you notice, you understand. And that alone can change everything. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need all the answers. Just start small. Watch them a little longer. Listen a little deeper. Act a little sooner. Because your dog has been speaking all along, just not in words. So before you go, if this opened your eyes even a little, comment, "I'm listening." And tonight, when your dog lies next to you, don't just pet them. Pause, look, and for the first time, really hear the silence.